Hello and welcome to AC Sisterhood Speaks. I am your host, Six Keys. In our last episode, we talked to Cecily Stenspiel, one of the two actors who portrayed Eivor in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And today, we are joined by the other Eivor, Magnus Brun. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Nice to be here.
It's really exciting to have you.
It's exciting to be here. I've been listening to all of your podcasts, actually, so it's wonderful.
Just a quick warning to our audience. We will get into some pretty heavy spoilers. So if you haven't finished the game yet, we recommend listening to this episode after you're done with the main story.
If you haven't finished the game, what's wrong with you?
Oh, have you finished the game?
Well, I've said all of it. That should count for something, shouldn't it?
Well, hopefully. We do have a number of questions for you. So if you don't mind, we'll just jump right in.
Just fire away.
Okay, so our first question. Were you familiar with Assassin's Creed before getting the role?
Yes, I knew about the franchise, and I saw the movie, which I've been told later that I shouldn't have. But I knew about the franchise, and I knew about the Assassins and the Templars and all that, but I hadn't played the game prior to getting the job. No.
Was this your first time acting in a video game? And what was the experience like?
It was, yes, and it was crazy, wonderful, and so much more than I expected. Because when I got the job, I knew it was big, but it just kept on getting bigger and bigger, which was wonderful. But also, it's one of those jobs where you don't know the whole story from the beginning, from the get-go, because they kept giving me new scripts, new, and because it's this character, Eivor, is the lead in this game, it is the amount of lines, the amount of story for this character is just, it's massive. I have now, with the DLCs, I think, recorded more than 13,000 lines. That is something else. Albie McDevitt told me that it's like having the lead character in a television series that goes on for 10 seasons, and you are in every episode, every 24 episode in each season. That is the amount of story that you get in this game. So that is just crazy. But in a fun way, because I've had the chance to dive into something very special that a lot of amazingly talented people have been working on for years, and just joining them for the last 1.5 years of that voyage has been spectacular, I think.
You mentioned that the story just felt like it kept on expanding and getting grander, which leads nicely into our next question. Valhalla doesn't just tell a straightforward Viking story, it also leans heavily into sci-fi and mythology. Were you surprised at the many layers and twists in the story?
Yes, and thank God for Darby for being there and helping all of us newbies in this franchise, helping us understand the massive story underneath the story that we were shooting, because it's when you dive into the Isu and all of that, it's just wow. It's so exciting. I wanted to do more of that as well, but didn't get that chance. But yeah, because it was just, it's just so big, and he knows so much, Darby. I can't praise that man enough, and and every time we had like, oh, I'm not sure I understand this or that, then he would sit me down and just start talking for an hour and telling me about, oh, so what actually happened here was, and then they did this, which the reaction was, it's just wonderful. I love when there's so many layers to a story that it's not only just straightforward, and this is not straightforward at all.
Okay, last warning to our listeners before we get into the spoiler-heavy stuff. Last chance to turn back. All right, next question. Eivor is a fascinating character in that there are two souls occupying the same body, one female, one male. It could be argued Eivor is gender non-conforming or gender fluid. How did you approach playing a character like this?
Well, I approached it as I would do most other characters in my building of Eivor, and that was that Eivor was me, and I had to find that side, or that thing inside me that was this character, and then expand that in telling this story. And with that, I also had this Odin layer, that the character is a reincarnation of Odin, and so I tried to. I read a lot. I've been researching so much for this this character, which it's fascinating, and I tried to put as much of Odin into the character without spilling the beans, so to speak. You can, if you read about Odin, there's a lot of stuff. He only drinks wine, so I try to always take a wine glass in a lot of in scenes, so that in something that Eivor wouldn't think of, but just the way somebody would help him choose stuff, and also Odin is a very is both a masculine and a feminine character in the Nordic sagas, and so there's this aspect of Odin where he shapeshifts into female beings and also male beings, and so having that aspect inside myself as well, and also Odin being this god of war as well, and like he loved like jewels, like people did a Holmgang, and he loved people sacrificing other people to him. So having that as well as all the berserkers, they would praise Odin. So having all of these aspects put into the character, gave me a character that was sort of whole, and that could go all the way in. So when Cecilia had to jump into the character, that what I had been doing in the motion capture, I think hopefully she was able to build on that, instead of it was just one way. I didn't try to play Eivor as a very masculine Viking character. I tried to play Eivor as a human being with this extra layer that Eivor didn't understand him or herself, being the Odin aspect. Did that answer make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Did you and Cecily consult with each other about Eivor's lines before recording so that both versions would feel the same? Or did you decide individually how to portray him or her?
Well, we talked a lot in the beginning about the character, and then I was doing the motion capture in Montreal, and she started doing the recordings of voiceover in Copenhagen, and then I would come to Copenhagen, and then I wouldn't listen to her. But I would had to hit her time codes for the character, because they were animating one character. They weren't animating two. So I would, in the beginning, we started out I would listen to her line, and then I had to do it myself. But very quickly, I found out this is not working for me, because I'm becoming a parrot, and that is not how I want to portray Eivor. I have ideas of this character, and this is locking me. Some actors love doing this way. For me, it was. I think I would grow tired of doing that all the time, and then we just started out doing my own choices in the voiceover, and then if it still had to fit, so I couldn't shout a lot if Cecilia had played the scene small and whispery. So we had to hit some of the same notes, but we tried to make two very different characters, but with the same intentions. And then we would talk while recording, and after, and so we did have a lot of conversations about it, and also we got a lot of information from the directors about how they wanted it, and if there's things they wanted to change to something else. So I think that was sort of how it was.
It's really interesting hearing about the process,
and it's such a great massive process, because it just kept on going. It's like, so we get the new full script for the next batch. So we had, I don't know, 1,600 pages for the next batch. Like, oh shit, it just never ends. But it was fun diving into the character, and they saved a lot of the heavy stuff for the end, because they wanted us to know the character really well before we had to do the ending with Sigurd, for example. We also shot most of the most important scenes, motion capture wise. We shot them in the last batches, because they knew that would help out. That if we knew the characters better at that point. But diving into this story, it has also been so. It's just so interesting, because what starts out as like this revenge story turns into it like an adventure of finding yourself and finding your own place in this new world that you're trying to create in a whole new country, and finding out that suddenly your beloved brother is he might not be so perfect after all, and that you might have to take his place, and you might also have made a choice to take his wife as well. There's so much in this story, other than hacking, slashing, and raiding and all that. And then you have the Basim character that you trust, and then suddenly you find out, oh no, this is I think we knew a lot about this in the beginning, but we had pieces of like the puzzle, but then we got a new script, like, oh man, is that how it's going to play out? And so he's going to be a no, and so
that's kind of how it works for the players too.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be that way for you. It's just like shooting a series. When I shot the Last Kingdom series, I was like, so what's going to happen in the next episode? Well, I hope I don't die, but we never know. It's like, fuck, man. It's like, because when I was younger, I thought that when they made series, they would have like 10 episodes written, fully final draft, ready to shoot. And then you'll get them, and then you'll start shooting. No, you maybe have 2 episodes. And then from there on, like, well, we're still writing on that. We have an idea. So a lot of things can change, and if people love a character more, then suddenly that character becomes bigger. And I think it can be the same in gaming, that this works out really well. We need to do more of this, or we need to have her more, or that character is just boring. So let's do less here, or it's finding out, and that's also interesting, being part of that process of creating. I love being able to create, not just being the one coming in saying some lines that another person wrote down for me, and then I'll be in my trailer. I don't like acting like that. I like to get my hands dirty and my mind, and I have a lot of ideas, and I would write to Darby saying, "What about, well, can we change this?" And there were scenes that I helped rewrite in the motion capture because it wasn't working. It's like, we can't make this work. What if we change this and do that, and try to because you get devoted to a project if the people are good, and people here on this project have just been so lovely and so welcoming and great and talented. So it's been a joy, and it's still a joy. So I'm so happy that I have become part of the AC universe. That is already very special to me. So thank you for that, and yeah, thank you for having me here. This is wonderful.
You already talked a little bit about how you tried to make Eivor and Odin distinct, like having the wine glass and stuff like that. But you also played Eivor's father, Varin, who was the catalyst to Eivor's personal arc. What were the challenges in making all these different characters feel distinct?
Well, for Varin, I think it was about he is not an older Eivor, because you could easily make that choice, but I had a picture in my mind. We saw some character sketches, which always helps when you have to jump in and do something quite quickly. So when we did the motion capture of the whole opening scene and all that, it's like Varin was this big, strong, bulky, but very heartwarming guy. This man that loves his wife and loves Eivor, loves his child, and just wants to hug him or her, grab the child and just, and at the same time, just a brilliant warrior, and a great leader. It was like portraying this character that was just there was something about having some weight, some extra weight in like in my voice, and feeling like I have a bigger belly, and it had to have that feel, and then it just came, and then also fun to start out with a character that just starts singing, that was one of the scenes that we were rewriting as we were doing it, because it didn't work while we were rehearsing it. Like, this is the opening of the whole game. It's not feeling anything. We need to so that we worked a lot on that, and on making that scene feel like this song is something that this clan is singing. This is a clan song, This is like, if they were a football fan club, this would be like their song. So it's so, and because when the first time we looked at the script, it felt like, and then Varin sings a song. And why is he singing a song? Well, because it says so here in the script. It didn't make any sense, and it's very hard to act out stuff that doesn't make any sense. So we tried to make it like, remember starting that beating on the chest, and that made, now the whole crowd, the whole clan knows this is coming. This is, oh man, this is wonderful. The Styrbjörn, the king, he's in for a treat now, because they're doing this, and and I think hopefully that feeling that we ended up bringing out is what the player will see and feel when they put on the headphones and start playing the game. That was the Varen question. And Odin, how we approached Odin was in many days. I told you a little bit about that we did a lot of research, but obviously the producers and directors did a whole lot of research, but I did a lot of my own research. But we had to find the voice, and we tried a lot of stuff. He first of all, in the beginning, he was very old and wise and had talked really slow, and then we tried something else, and it never did fit until we tried to make it like it should be similar to Eivor, but just a bit older and wiser. So I think that was how we ended out. But we had so many sessions where we used an hour on Odin, and then Ash and Darby, which is it's not that one. It's not. We'll try something else. Well, let's go this way, and because it's so important that character works and that voice works. I can't even totally remember how we ended up where we ended, but we tried a lot.
I have 2 more questions if you still have some time.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm sorry. You've lent your support to AC Sisterhood publicly on Twitter and even dropped by some of our charity streams during our breast cancer research fundraiser.
Mm-hmm.
What does the sisterhood movement mean for you? What kind of changes would you like to see it lead to in the industry?
Well, I think it's such an important movement, and I hope, but also I really believe and think that the world is changing now, and that it's changing for the better. There are still some, and this is not only in the gaming industry. This is all over. That there's a lot of old, white, privileged men sitting on top positions, clinging to the power and to that power, and just don't want to have anything should change. And we're trying so hard to kick them out, one at a time, so we can have some more equality in this male-dominated world. And I hope that the sisterhood can be a catalyst to making more people understand that it's not all right, and that there's just in Assassin's Creed fanhood, there's so many female players, and that you can't just satisfy the male players. They've gotten the lead character for ages now, and now that you can pick a girl and or a man, and why aren't they happy now? They get like, shut up, man! Just look at the world; it's changing. We need to follow this movement of the world, and I hope that it will happen faster with this. And I've seen a lot of reactions, good reactions on Twitter and Instagram about AC Sisterhood. Also getting there's a lot of the devs in the games are so much into this as well. And that is important. Now we just need to level up, get into the producers' rooms and it's about that change, and it's coming, hopefully.
Just want to say that we've really appreciated seeing your support for the movement. It's been very important for us.
Well, it's an honor to be able to put focus on this, to help with this, because we need to change this together, and we need more male voices to articulate that.
Definitely.
Because otherwise this shouldn't be just a female movement. This should be like a general movement. Yeah, so I will always lend my voice and body and mind to that. So on that note, you can always call on me, definitely.
That's awesome. One final question. Who are some women in your life that you look up to or who have inspired you?
My wife, definitely. She is, in many aspects, perfect, I think. When I look at her, I always smile. And I think she's clever and funny and great mother. And, I really look up to her. And in so many ways, I respect her so much. Yeah, I wouldn't be anywhere without her, I think. And my mother is also a person I've always been able to trust and put my trust in, and always in my safe haven. I think those two. And there's a lot of great female musicians and wonderful actresses as well. PJ Harvey, Kate Blanchett. There's so many wonderful women out there that have my utter respect.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to the Sisterhood.
Well, there's a pleasure. Such a pleasure. I hope that I made sense. I tend to baffle on, just blah, blah, blah.
We wanted to, of course, I already said it, but we really appreciate your support for the movement and, of course, all the nuance that you brought to a character like Eivor.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been such a fun journey, really, and it's still a very fun journey.
We look forward to hearing more of you in the first DLC that is coming out in May, Wrath of the Druids.
Oh yeah, very soon. Hopefully you'll enjoy that.
Thanks again to our guest and to our audience for tuning in. And have a great week, everyone.
Cheers, all of you.